And thank you to everyone else for coming. It's a great pleasure to see you here this evening. Your attendance is very welcome. Unusually for me, I've actually prepared a speech, and as Sue said, it's probably good to have a script. So it would have been a great shame if nobody had turned up to hear it, so I'm very grateful. I am absolutely delighted to have the opportunity to follow Sue as President. Sue, as we said, has done a fantastic job as our second female President, and I'm also delighted that Sheila, our first female President, is also here tonight, so that's, it's really set the standards for the institution, and we need to make sure that we find a way of carrying on that diversity into the future. I shall try my best to take forward the tremendous work and success that Sue has had during her year. It is a great honour for me to have been elected as President by the institution. I'm grateful for the opportunity. However, I must say that I'm being invited to stand for President. One of Groucho Marx's quotes did cross my mind, which was, "Please accept my resignation. I don't want to belong to any organisation that will accept people like me as a member." He might have added, "let alone be the President." But, when I became Vice President in 2014, it did seem that I had a long time to prepare for my presidential role, but as Gary and Andy will know, clients kept giving us work to do, which has rather got in the way of the preparations. But anyway, the day is here. I'm as ready as I'll ever be. Maybe not as ready as I should be, but and I'm really looking forward to it. David Gibby gave me some good advice. I don't know if you remember, David, but you suggested I go on a diet in preparation for all the regional dinners. Thank you for that. As you can see, it didn't work as well as I might have hoped. But fortunately, I was also given the role of trying to lead the restructuring of the institution. And as Sue identified, we reduced the number of branches from 19 down to 12 regions. So fewer dinners rather than more dieting, which is a good compromise. Probably means I can eat more at those dinners, I think. I don't know. So, before I say a few words about my background and the theme that I'm planning for the year, I'd like to give a few personal thanks as well. My thanks to the CIHT team here, led by Sue Percy. Thank you, Sue, for the support you've given me so far. The team here at Britannia Water does a fantastic job, and I'll be very much relying on their help and support during the year. Also to my fellow trustees, the council members and regional committee members who all do the work, put in their time and energy voluntarily, and they provide extremely valuable advice and guidance to the institution and myself, so thank you to everyone. Particular thanks to the West Midlands committee. David's here representing the West Midlands, so David, if you can take my thanks back to the West Midlands Regional Committee for their help and support over the years, I'd be grateful. My thanks to my business partners, Gary and Andy, who are pleased to see here tonight. I shall be asking them to take on extra work to let me do this role, and I'm actually a little bit surprised that they got the time to come here tonight, but there's always Sunday chaps, don't worry. My wife Liz, who provides great support in many ways, thank you. Basically, she does all the hard work while I swan around the country, adding to the traffic demand to help justify more transport projects. So that's, thanks Liz, it's been great help to have your support. I'm also very pleased that I've got some members of my family here this evening, my brother Chris and his wife Rosalia, and my sister Jane and her husband John. I mean, there might have been a his and a hers in there wrong, but you know what I mean. I'm particularly grateful to our daughter Juliet, who has sacrificed her last few end-of-term social events at Leeds University to be here, so thank you for that. I'm told that the leavers week or fortnight at the end of term is now much more exciting and alcoholic than the freshers week at the beginning of term, but is that right? Yeah, it was a yes there, yeah. Okay, so I come in at a time when the institution, as we've heard, is being very successful. Sue Sharon and Sue Percy have set out some of the highlights of the year. You know, I'm delighted to be able to come in when the institution is in very good shape. It makes my job easier. We have grown steadily over the past few years. We have more members than we've ever had. We're more influential in our relationships with stakeholders, and we've continued to raise our profile in the media. It's all good, successful stuff. Our new toolkit for diversity and inclusion has been very well received. We have plans to use that to improve diversity, not across our membership, but across the whole profession. We've had the first year of our new regional structure, through which we're improving our services that we provide to members, strengthened our links with industry through our corporate partner scheme, continue to expand the support we provide to professional development and the qualifications that we offer, and importantly, we are in a stronger position financially than we've ever been. So it's all fantastic news, and the focus of our new structure, our new strategic plan, I'll come back to that in a few minutes, or a couple of hours anyway. That's to continue to improve the organisation, the services we provide to members, the public and the industry as a whole. Now, before getting on to what my theme is for the year, I'm conscious that I know many of you in the audience, but I don't know everyone, so I should say a few words, maybe more than a few, about my background and my career. There's been some challenging projects along the way, some protesters you may have heard about, but starting off with Exeter, and Sue gave Exeter a good plug. Thank you for that, Sue. So Exeter, my home of the mighty Grecians. You'll know I support Exeter City, the football club. I now support the magnificent Chiefs, now that they're being successful. Second in the Premiership this year, but I thought I'd better also bring in a transport link into Exeter. So Exeter, home of the first British canal with locks, I believe, back in 1566. The with locks is very important. Chris will be very familiar with this, having been on a few ships going up and down there. Exmouth, just down the road from Exeter, that's where I developed my civil engineering skills on the beaches there, with a vast network of tunnels, dams and range of buildings, otherwise known as sandcastles, but I'm sure that gave me the love for civil engineering. Eventually I ended up at Plymouth Polytechnic. Bit of an old photo there, if you look at some of the cars, but I had to get an old photo because that building's now been knocked down, I believe. Chris sort of lives in, anyway, he's sort of half nodding, so that seems to happen with buildings that I've been acquainted with over the years. They seem to have been knocked down, but I did a civil engineering sandwich course there. Very much enjoyed 4 years, or 3 years plus the year out. I think I was attracted to the sandwich part of the degree because of the name, but it turned out that was an industrial year, and I was let loose on the A69 up in Newcastle, where we drove a bypass through Hadrian's Wall. Not a protester in sight, may I say, but a vast range of fantastic earth-moving machines. I could spend the next 15 minutes talking about the benefits of those 637 scrapers and the like, so, but better move on. Having graduated, I joined the Hampshire subunit of the South East Road Construction Unit, and the aficionados will recognise the A3M motorway there, looking out over to South Sea, Hayling Island and Portsmouth. I worked on a few other schemes around Southampton and Winchester, including Twyford Down, which you may have heard of. When the road construction units closed in the 80s, I moved to the West Midlands regional office, and having spent a bit of time in the traffic group there, I eventually ended up as project manager on the Birmingham Northern Relief Road, and took the scheme through the first public inquiry before it became the M6 toll road. I was very fortunate in the Leamington office to work under the guidance of John Carrington and Alan Whitfield, you may remember, as the roads programme director at the time. And they taught me much about my project delivery requirements. When the Highways Agency was formed in '95, I was appointed as Director for Projects in southern England. There's one of the schemes I took over quite early on, the M25 widening for junctions 8 to 10. There with Laurie Haynes, the first Chief Executive of the Highways Agency. Some of you may also recognise that slightly dodgy looking character on the left with the moustache. That's Dave Smith from our West Midlands committee. The moustache is a bit greyer now, I think. But, at that time, the media picked up on my appointment to a range of rather difficult projects in the south of England. they helpfully reminded me of the challenges I faced and some of the clouds that I would be under. I think one of the, there's a nice quote in there, I don't think I can quite read it off that, but it was about something to do with the Brighton Bypass being late, but I was able to say that in the overall scale of things it might be a bit late, but that was against a very ambitious programme. So, but the biggest challenge was taking on Newbury Bypass and a few thousand protesters. It felt like a few thousand, I think it was at one occasion. We had about 10,000 trees to fell, and when we got there they all looked like that, with protesters up, most of them. And you might not, if you actually got the time to count those protesters, about 30 protesters up there, and when you had to take the protesters out of the trees one at a time before you could get the tree down, and you had 10,000 trees to fell, you thought, blimey, how long is this going to take? Of course, 10,000 trees, it sounds a lot, but we ended up planting 200,000 trees to replace that. And you may remember the little snail that we discovered, which was protected under European directives. And I don't want to get controversial here. And, I did a lecture in France, and I told the French Roads Administration about how we had to move all the habitat and the snails. And the chief exec of the French Roads Administration said, "Steve, we have other ways of dealing with snails." £1.5 million to move those snails. And there was Swampy, you might remember Swampy, Daniel Hooper. I'll give you his prisoner number as well if you want. But, he looked nice, but when he was on the drugs he was particularly unpleasant and violent, as many of his mates were. And there's one of Costain's machines. We've got Mike Napier here tonight. I don't know if you recognise that particular machine, Mike, but a few scars from the protester damage, that one. It wasn't all a lot of fun, but eventually we were actually able to complete those evictions in 3 months, which was quite an achievement. When we came to the end of the evictions, there was a lot of media around. They were particularly interested in this last tree that we had to take down. It was going to be a real challenge, and as it happened we were able to save it, and so I agreed that we wouldn't chop this one tree down. That made it on the front page of the national papers, but King Arthur, King of the Druids, Arthur Pendragon as he changed his name to, he didn't trust me. I can't understand why, but he didn't trust me. He thought we were going to come back later and cut it down, so he placed a Druid's curse on me, that if that tree ever dies, that I'm going to die with it. So we regularly drive by it now, and I'm always... we carry some anti-pest spray with us just in case. I don't know if that means that if it doesn't die for 200 years, that I'm going to live that long, but anyway. Anyway, so that was, it was a busy time when I was at Newbury, because we also had responsibility for the second Severn crossing, which opened 20 years ago this month actually. So it was, and we had the particular challenge that the approach roads were way behind the bridge crossing in terms of progress, and the Prince Charles, His Royal Highness, was booked in June, and we were going to open the approach roads in about November, so which didn't sound like a very good idea, so we had to accelerate the approach roads to make sure that when the bridge opened there was a road joining it. And on the morning of the opening we finished the approach road, which was cutting it a bit fine, but there we go. It was, so there you can see Prince Charles, you can see the guns there. I said, who put those guns there? I was project director. Nobody told me about that we were having guns. And that caused some personal embarrassment. I'm not sure I should tell you this, but I will. If you can just imagine, His Royal Highness, he stopped still. We all stood to attention while they played the national anthem. He moves forward. There was a long line of us ready to meet him. He shook hands with Laurie Haynes, the chief executive. And Laurie turns to me and said, "And this is Steve Rowsell, Projects Director." His Royal Highness leant forward to shake his hands, and then bang! First of these guns went off, 21 gun salute. Anyway, so I was shaking, I ducked down, Prince Charles ducks down, we nearly nutted each other. And I said, well, I won't tell you exactly what I said, but basically, with his ear inches away from my mouth. I said, what the, was that? And I said, oh, very sorry, Your Royal Highness. He said, don't worry, Mr. Rowsell, perfectly understandable. I thought I'd been shot. So I think we got away with it. So I don't know. So long as he's not told our royal patron, Princess Anne, that's the main thing. At that time, it wasn't uncommon for projects to open late and cost more than planned. Brighton Bypass, for example, about 1.5 years late, claims of about £40 million on a £20 million contract. Looks nice enough there. Avonmouth Bridge, the test of strength. They say any publicity is good publicity, but when it says, with the M5 Avonmouth Bridge strengthening works running way behind schedule and way over budget, the main parties on this complex project have acted in an attempt to salvage the situation. So sort of a little bit of good news in there, but without that collaboration, even though after 1.5 years we were 2 years behind schedule, and the tender price of £50 million eventually increased to £170 million. So despite all that, without the collaboration that was introduced, we'd never have finished that project. And I was tasked with doing much work into the causes of cost and time overruns on projects, and in 2000, I was appointed as Procurement Director at the Highways Agency, became a manager of the Highways Agency Board. I developed the procurement strategy there, delivering best value solutions and services. We spent a year engaging with the industry and our own internal teams on the development of things like early contractor involvement, the new MAC maintenance contracts, capability assessment tool. It's happy days, eh, Tony? And Gary, business partner, was also very heavily involved in all of that. And after 7 years as procurement director, I departed Highways Agency. There was some media attention and a bit of concern about what would happen to these initiatives. So there we go, ECI under threat as Rowsell quits Highways Agency. And there's the question there is, will Steve Rowsell's departure from the Highways Agency trigger the death of early contractor involvement? Yes, 14%, no, 34%, 52% don't know. They probably didn't have I think I was one of the 52%. Anyway, I'm glad to say that the 14% were largely wrong, as we're just awarding a whole load of, or tendering a whole load of HS2 contracts on ECI principles. Anyway, I left, set up a new procurement consultancy with Gary. Choosing the name for our company was a challenge, and after many weeks of debate, thinking along the lines of world's best procurement consultancy and things like that, we decided imaginatively to call ourselves, not that, there we go, Rowsell Wright. So you can see there was a lot of imagination, and anyway, it served us well. We've supported a load of highway projects. We've moved across into railway as well. We worked on Crossrail for 8 years. For 2.5 years I acted as head of procurement. And sort of having started working on the scheme before the financial approval and the planning approval was given, to actually now see the project with the tunnels completed and the project well on the way to completion. You might not be able to see the face, but you can probably that figure who stood there going, "Woo!" That's Boris. You can probably tell from the that's Boris taking all the credit for building the tunnels. Well done, Boris. Oh, so I called it Crossrail. Of course, it's Elizabeth Line now, I think. But, we also work on HS2. We're still working on that. We developed the procurement strategy, I say, based on ECI principles. Government's very keen to buy British, as you know. Again, could be getting a bit controversial here with the referendum next week, but we'll avoid that. Anyway, so to help the British manufacturers, HS2 I think are going for a train design for which UK manufacturers are more familiar, based on Thomas tank engine, of course. And you can just see Thomas just outstripping the Japanese bullet train there, so well done, Thomas. And of course, we do have a few protesters just to make me feel at home, and I won't mention the white elephant. You can make your own, take your own view on that. So that's my career in terms of CIHT. Rather like CIHT, my roots are in highways, but I've branched out into those other transport sectors. My formal involvement with CIHT was back in 1998 when I became a member. Sat on the procurement panel for a while and also joined the IHT West Midlands branch committee as it was then. Went on to be branch chairman in 2009-10. I served for 2 years. I'd like to say I served for 2 years because of my success and popularity in the role. but it was actually due to a lack of any willing volunteer to take over from me. Eventually we found someone, so that was good. I subsequently joined council, chaired the Communication and External Affairs Board, became a trustee before accepting the role of Vice President in 2014. And in that role this year, I've been chairing the new regional panel meeting. So that's all been good foundation for what I'm now doing. And in terms of my theme for the coming year, the title of the film, couldn't make it into a film, but the theme, strategic collaboration in transport, I've chosen that theme to be aligned with CIHT's new 5-year strategic plan, Delivering Transport for a Better Society. That's due to be published shortly. That'll set out CIHT's values: professional, progressive, inclusive and collaborative. And they will all be applied in the way we deliver our strategic objectives. And I'm picking on the collaborative theme as the main part of my approach to the year, as that fits in well with what I've done in terms of my career on delivering major projects. I think many of us in the room will be familiar with the collaborative approaches to projects and services which have become widespread over the last 10 years. My focus on strategic collaboration is aimed at applying collaborative principles to the delivery of our corporate objectives. CIHT, many of you will be aware, is a charity, and our charitable objective is to provide public benefit and to promote education, training and research through the advancement of the science and art of highways and transportation. So a science and an art. We can't do this on our own, of course. Numerous organisations are involved in addressing the current and future transport challenges. We need to identify and focus our efforts on working with those stakeholders with whom we can achieve the biggest outcomes, the best outcomes. That strategic collaboration with our stakeholders requires the identification of common objectives, clarity of roles and effective communications. And as the leading, I like to think CIHT is the leading professional institution involved in the highways and transportation sector, I believe we need to develop our view on what we consider are the key national and regional transport priorities, and I'd like to promote some debate on that during the course of the year. I think it's also appropriate that we do engage more with the wider transport sectors. As I say, our roots are in highways, but planning investment in highways cannot be done in isolation of other transport sectors. There are many opportunities for us, and we have common challenges with other sectors such as rail, where there is much scope for transferable skills and procedures to help address the issues we face. So, I mean, HS2, I've mentioned that. HS2, as an example, is not just a railway, it's a massive integrated transport project. Much of the civil engineering requirements are very similar to motorway type construction, substantial highway diversions involved in the project, many transport interfaces, particularly at the stations, and it's going to result in substantial road rail freight transfer from the West Coast Main Line onto the West Coast Main Line, which will reduce heavy goods vehicles movements on the motorways. So, and it's also interesting when you look at organisations like HS2, it's an engineering project, but only about 50% of the people in the organisation are engineers, and all of the other different professions and skills are required to deliver the project. When that proportion of engineers to other skills mirrors the makeup of CIHT's own membership. The people involved in wider transport projects and services with different professional backgrounds are all potential members for CIHT, so we need to make the organisation more relevant and more welcoming to them. So I'm going to be looking to develop stronger collaborative relationships with a range of internal and external stakeholders. Some of those identified there, so the universities in relation to research and skills and to enhance our academic links. Better relationships, or continue to develop our relationships with government departments and agencies. Not just DFT on areas like the Transport Road Science Task Force and the Shared Space Project, but also with Department for Business, Innovation and Skills on the skills agenda. Working with local government and LEPs, we need to provide an improved offering to the public sector, and we'd like to create a collaboration forum for the public sector to discuss issues with the private sector, facilitated by CIHT. Our corporate partners are very important to us, and we need to develop that relationship. so that we can raise issues with decision makers that are going to be of mutual benefit to ourselves and corporate partners. The regional structure we've mentioned on a number of times. We want to develop the role of the regional committees and to get them engaged with the regional debate on transport matters. Other professional institutions, Sue said quite a lot about that, and again that's going to be highly important that we bring together the synergies of the different institutions. And to build on Sue's theme from last year, working with technology companies and associated bodies to make sure that we continue to stay at the forefront of that agenda. Right, and so just finally, just looking ahead to what I hope will be a year of achievement. What are we hoping to achieve through that improved collaboration? Growth in membership, of course, to build on the diversity agenda, to improve diversity in our membership and the wider profession. Developing opportunities offered by our new regional structure. Getting a joined-up approach to the addressing the skills shortage, and I'm sure CIHT has got a big role to play in that. Even greater influence. We are doing well at the moment with the influence we have on regional and national transport policies, but to take that even a step further. As I say, developing stronger relationships with corporate partners and academic institutions and other stakeholders to realise the common objectives and common benefits. And finally, just to be able to develop our understanding of future requirements and transport priorities to support investment planning. So I think that's quite a big agenda. I hope I've shown how throughout the year we're going to continue to develop this theme of strategic collaboration, and I very much look forward to working with many of you on that agenda. Thank you very much.